Friends, fellow Singaporeans, some of you know that I spent some of the best years of my life in St. Andrew's School. Even though Dr. Chi is from ACS, he's still my good friend. Up and on, that's right. The school is more well known for its sports, especially for its rugby team, than for stellar academic performances. However, more importantly, St. Andrews has a reputation for values. In fact, recently, I was very pleased to see a report of the unveiling of the Jacob Ballas Memorial at the Kiwi Cup in January this year. What really caught my eye, though, was the guest of honor, who was one of 3 guests of honor who cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony. And he was none other than the former Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Michael Palmer. Yes, he disgraced himself. He let down his family, let down the people of Singapore, the voters of Punggol East in 2013, but he had paid the price. He lost his parliamentary seat, he lost a lucrative job as Speaker of Parliament, and he deservedly suffered public embarrassment. And that was in 2013. But in January 2016, St. Andrew's School accepted him back as an old boy who was not defined solely by the acts of bad behavior. That made me proud to be a saint, someone who is part of the St. Andrews family. And that is what I was talking about when I referred to not judging Mr. David Ong in my statements last weekend. Now, you know the Singapore Democratic Party is a democratic party. Dr. Chi does not vet our speeches. This is something which is difficult for the PAP to understand. The SDP is a party which actually trusts the people. In fact, Dr. Chi has no idea of what I'm going to say tonight. He has a rough idea of which topics each of us is going to cover. And sometimes we make mistakes. In the first rally speech, a couple of speakers made jokes about Mr. David Ong. And Dr. Chi called us out on that in person, by email, and in the second rally he spoke, reminding us to stop criticizing Mr. David Ong personally. And as you can see, that has not happened in subsequent rallies. It is really sad that those remarks that we made have been distorted so badly by our media and politicians. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow's newspapers are full of accounts of cabinet ministers proclaiming how astounded they are that a professor of infectious disease is promoting adultery. Yesterday, when I was in a bookstore, a distinguished former journalist came up to me and asked me, "Why did you say that character does not matter?" I said to him, "I never said that, but your former colleagues in the newspaper did." He shook his head and he said that he's no longer with the paper anymore. And this is what I was referring to during the first rally, when I pointed out how the odds are stacked against the alternative parties, with the PAP's total control of the media and the People's Association with its $1 billion a year budget. Some of us have tried to correct that by literally putting our money where our mouths are. Last year was my Jubilee year. It was my 50th birthday year. And I made a decision, thank you, to give a biblically significant portion of my income that year to causes which I believe in. To my church, in particular to a new building we're building in Jurong, for which DPM Tharman has helped us a lot. To some charities, to those working with autism, AIDS, and other diseases, to groups that work with migrant workers, to educational institutions such as NUS, and to organizations that promote freedom of speech and democracy, such as the Online Citizen and the Singapore Democratic Party. I know that there are many others who have done the same. In fact, last year, before the general election, an NUS professor came up to me and said, "How can I give money to the party but not have my name recorded?" I half-jokingly told him, "You know, a lot of people buy umbrellas and mugs." To my surprise, after the election, he told me, "I now have a huge collection of SDP umbrellas. Can I give you 1 or 2 of them?" This climate of fear, fortunately, is slowly disappearing. Many of us were very encouraged 2 nights ago when we saw Pua Chu Kang's mother, Pua Ama, here on stage. I mean, Neo Swee Lin. She spoke up for Dr. Chi and against the gutter politics that have been practiced during this campaign. 2 years ago, when Dr. Chi was selling books at Raffles Place, people used to walk across the road, cross by on the other side of the street, and pretend they didn't see him. Now we see lines of people queuing up to get him to sign their books and to take selfies with him. Times have changed. When people can see for themselves who he is, what his character really is like, their mind is completely different from seeing the biased view that has been put out over the last 20 years. When I spoke up in GE 2011, many people thought that I would lose my job and that I'd be forced to work in Mount Elizabeth looking after rich people from the region. They were very surprised when instead I was promoted to full professor with tenure in 2013. Thank you. In the last week, I have received a tremendous amount of support from many people at work, from senior colleagues to junior staff, house officers, nurses, even the guys at the parking area. The knuckle duster era is well and truly over. We have a mountain to climb, but with the help of all you good people who have come forward to speak up and to give generously, we will reach the people of Bukit Batok this weekend. We will reach them with the message that now is the time for change. Now is the time for... And that's another classic example of a policy that looks good in some scholar's office, but has serious concerns when applied to the real lives of elderly and disabled residents. And that's what we are going to be talking about. When the SDP launched our healthcare plan in 2012, it was written mainly by my GP colleagues, Dr. Tan Lip Hong and Dr. Leong Yen Hoi, together with a team of healthcare professionals. They are people who see patients in the heartlands, day in, day out. They know what's going on. They're not sitting in some fancy office with scholars and administrators. We called for a genuine universal health insurance program that provides evidence-based healthcare to all in Singapore. We agreed that everyone should be covered by universal health insurance, just like MediShield Life, but we suggested that the government should pay the fees for those who couldn't afford to pay, rather than locking them up. And that seems to be the way MediShield Life is structured. If you don't believe me, go to the MOH website, to the frequently asked questions on MediShield Life, and it states very clearly, and I quote, "However, if an insured person is informed that he is restricted from leaving the country until his premiums are paid, but still tries to leave the country, he will be arrested." What kind of health insurance is that threatens people with arrest if they cannot pay? MediShield Life, which is the flagship of the government's healthcare reform, is an improvement on MediShield in that it covers pre-existing medical conditions. Thanks to a parliamentary question by Mr. Gerald Giam from the Workers' Party, we now know that MediShield was the world's most profitable public sector health insurance policy. With MediShield Life, the premiums have gone up across the board, but the deductibles have barely changed. What this means is for those over the age of 80 in a C-class ward, the first $2,000 in a calendar year cannot be claimed under MediShield Life. You have to pay cash or MediSave. So it's obvious that the majority of hospitalizations are actually not covered by MediShield Life because of these high deductibles. Furthermore, very few outpatient procedures are covered, mainly those in cancer or kidney failure. As a result, according to the Minister of Health during the recent COS debate, the MediShield Life payout from December 2015 to February 2016 was only $136 million. If we multiply that by 4 or even 5 times, it reaches a total of $680 million a year, or less than 5% of total health expenditure, both public and private, in Singapore every year. Where does the other 95% come from? It comes from government subsidies, employer-funded health insurance, and out-of-pocket expenditure, including MediSave. In other words, MediShield Life, which was featured in all those fancy videos, is really a very small part of the complex healthcare financing in Singapore. Where did all those billions of dollars in extra spending go to then? These are the questions we need someone brave enough like Dr. Chee Soon Juan to ask in Parliament. Mr. Murali has proposed engaging my colleague, Dr. Carol Tan, and her healthcare cooperative, the Good Life Cooperative, to help needy seniors. But we are arguing that the senior citizens in Bukit Batok do not want charity. They do not want handouts. What they want is fairness. They want dignity. They want to have equal access to evidence-based, high-quality health care. And you know that Dr. Chee will press for this in Parliament. Tell your makcik and your pakcik, your aam and your ape, your mama and your mommy to vote for CSJ to get a fair deal in health care. They know they do not want some fancy wayang. They need the assurance that they can afford to get sick, and they do not need to suffer and die needlessly in modern Singapore. Dr. Chee is someone who has spent the last 20 plus years speaking up for the last and the least in our society. He has been called all kinds of names, including a political failure in the foreign media by Minister Chan Chun Sing. Don't boo. In spite of this, he has remained dedicated to the cause of freedom and democracy for Singaporeans. I have no doubt that in a few years' time, Singapore will become a normal developed country with a freer press, open discussion and debate on political issues that are relevant to all Singaporeans. The government will become more transparent and accountable. There will be freedom of expression for talented Singaporeans. And at that time, everyone will try and claim credit for the opening up of our society. But I am reminded of an encounter I had with someone who worked in Eastern Europe for many years, long before the fall of the Iron Curtain. He told me that after the curtain fell, everyone rushed in to provide social and other services. But the people there recognized him more than anyone else. And the reason was because he had been there for years when the going was tough. Their comment to the others was this: when it was hard, when it was risky to help us, where were you? When it was not popular to take a stand, where were you? That's the question that Ms. Constance Singham asked at the Aware EOGM. When Singapore becomes more free, and everyone tries to claim that, oh, they had been enlightened Democrats all along, the people will ask them, where were you? Since the passing of the late, great J.B. Jeyaretnam, there's probably only one Singaporean who can stand up, hand on heart, and say, I was there, fighting for you, every step of the way. Dr. Chee Soon Juan. Now is the time. Vote Dr. Chee. Full-time MP for Bukit Batok. Vote SDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Tambyah.